Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. I am Luke Lapinski.
And I'm Doug Cannon.
On this week's show, we go around the entire NHL, including a look at the Oilers, and then we look at all the future Oilers hitting the ice in the World Junior Championships.
And after we cogitate on the West and the East, we will take a look at the recent medical concern within the NHL.
I was told there'd be no cogitation on this show. All that and more, let's drop the puck on episode 53. Well, Doug, here we are.
Where are we, Luke?
We are where we should be, recording this podcast, the long-anticipated episode 53. It took... You know what I thought driving over here? It took us longer to record this than it took Guns N' Roses to release their last CD.
They had a last CD?
Well, they had Chinese Democracy that they started in 1994?
That wasn't really Guns N' Roses, though.
Well,
that was Axl Rose using the moniker.
But it was when they started back in the early 90s, and then they released it. I don't even know if they have released it yet.
And it wasn't very good.
No,
This will be 10 times better, 100 times better.
This is the culmination of 52 podcasts previous coming together into one magical episode 53.
Darn tootin'.
Who's your number 53?
There's only one.
I know. We've set you up for this really for 52 episodes.
I've been waiting for it.
We should almost just skip over and go to number 54. But go ahead.
It has to be Derek Morris.
Derek Morris, I'm not going to argue with you. It's Derek
How
Morris.
can you?
I can't.
First round pick, 13th overall, over 1,000 games, 19 seasons.
One of your favorites.
He's definitely one of my favorites. I mean, nobody plays the position of defense like Derek plays it. And I wish more guys would get more of that defensive mindset and play that way. I think the game itself would improve a lot better.
Normally, I would say this is your overwhelming defensive bias seeping in, but we've both met Derek Morris, and we've seen him play firsthand. Very fundamental hockey player.
Fundamental. He's one of those guys where the average fan will watch and, oh, look, he's not doing anything, but he does so much, and he does it correctly that it's effortless for us to watch. I mean, it's not effortless for him to execute.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, he's playing
Takes work.
Takes a lot of work. Another former teammate in Zbigniew Michalek is the same way. He plays the game where you don't really notice him, but he's so effective.
Defensive-minded defensemen catch Doug Cannon's attention.
It's just the way
almost rhymed.
Yeah, it's almost. But it's the way I think. I mean, I think that the offensive defensemen have had their glory days, and at points in a game, it will hurt you because they're out of position. And if the forwards don't backcheck to help that one defenseman that's left alone, you got a problem.
Yeah, well, you got to have a guy like Morris that will stay back so your offensive defenseman can go up. What about Jeff Skinner? He's number 53. He's not bad.
No, Derek Morris.
Okay.
Nope, Derek Morris.
Bo Horvat?
And the other thing I love about Derek is that he played 19 seasons in the NHL, and he was physical. Like when you went into his zone, his defensive zone, you knew you were in his defensive zone. He let you know very politely, this is my space, and you don't belong here.
Or not so politely.
And he played first with Calgary, Colorado, Phoenix, then brief stint in New York, stopped by downtown Manhattan, had a cup of coffee, went to Boston, and then finished up in Phoenix.
So there you go. This is really this is the reason you've done this podcast for
I was waiting
right?
for number 53 because there is no other 53 than Derek Morris.
So do you want to stick around for the rest of the show?
No, I'm done. This is great.
Okay. Well, it's been a while. So I say that, Doug, we just go through game by game, every game we've missed. Ready?
Oh, no.
Let's start with November 19th. First period, Florida-Toronto.
No, because Toronto wasn't playing well back then.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to Toronto and Florida later, but let's start in the Western Conference and move east across the continent. I don't know where you want to start in the West, Doug, but I kind of want to start with the Edmonton Oilers.
Okay, let's start there.
I just feel like I don't understand the Edmonton Oilers. I don't get it. Let me set the scene. They've lost 18 of 19.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, it's supposed to get better, right?
As a fan, I would hope it was going to get better, yes.
I feel, and look, it's so much worse for Edmonton now because Calgary fans had their rebuild, and it took a year. I mean, Calgary's still rebuilding, but they've at least had something to cheer. The Oilers fans don't even have anything to cheer anymore.
Calgary is only 3 points out of a wild card spot as we record.
Calgary was on a tear to start the year. Unfortunately for them, they've lost 8 in a row.
Right.
But still, they're in year 2 or whatever, 2.5 of a rebuild. Edmonton's in like year 28, it feels like.
Well, the interesting thing to compare and contrast with Calgary and Edmonton, Calgary, Brian Burke finds a new GM in Brad Treliving. Since Brad's been on board, we kind of had that surge at the beginning of the season. We'll see how they are in the long haul. But like I said, right now, they're 3 points out of a wild card spot. They got a fresh face running the show. People seem to be responding to that. Whereas in Edmonton, the only thing they've done recently is let go of their head coach.
Which they've done before.
And it looks like they're going to replace him with another minor league coach.
Which they've done before.
And I'm thinking, if I'm a player in that room and another AHL coach walks through the door, I'm like, weren't we just here?
They're going to trade somebody, right? I mean, I think we're at the point now where you're going to have to shake that up and trade somebody who's pretty good. And so when you do that, you can't miss.
Okay, stop right there.
I'm stopping.
Why are we trading somebody?
Because you've tried firing coaches and it doesn't work.
But why are we trading? What if I trade player A, what am I trying to get in return for him?
Well, you're trying to get a vet. And depending who you trade. I mean, if you look down the Oilers, it's going to have to be a top-end player. The Oilers can't just ship off their garbage and be like, hey, give us somebody good. It's going to – maybe it doesn't have to be Taylor Hall. It's not going to be Ryan Nugent-Hopkins because he's a center. So
right.
Then what are you looking at Jordan Eberle? I mean –
I talked to a NHL coach the other day about this very problem.
Okay.
And we both – because I posed the question. It was a kind of a leading question. I said, is this room lacking veterans to help these younger guys?
Yes.
And his answer was yes.
And not just now. Like this is you and I have talked about this before, but it's gotten worse for the Oilers. I mean, they're trending towards having their worst season in franchise history. It's not that they're not getting better, they're actually getting worse. This mix doesn't work. And I think a lot of it is because when Taylor Hall and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Jordan Eberle and back when they had Sam Gagner and all these young guys were coming up, they didn't have anybody older to look up to then.
No.
You can't have a bunch of 19-year-olds learning from other 19-year-olds.
Well, and the other thing that I was told is that the problem that you have is you've got a bunch of very talented 19-year-olds. You don't have a veteran or a number of veterans in the room to put them or steer them in the right direction. So what happens is these really talented young players develop bad habits.
Yeah, that's inevitable.
And then the problem now you have is it's very hard after 3 years to break those bad habits, and typically after 3 years, they're into big money contracts.
Those are all excellent points, and I don't even know that you could bring in. I'm sure there's a vet or two vets, and it's probably going to take 2 or 3. I don't know that you can at this point bring in vets and be like, "Hey, unlearn all the habits you've learned."
That's not going to happen.
I almost think you do need to break it up.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked the question. If I'm going to give up a Taylor Hall,
you're not doing it for the sake of giving him up. You got to get some major
I
pieces
need
back.
something in return, and it's got to be a productive veteran. I'm not talking a 50-goal scorer, but he's got to at least produce, let's say, 20 goals.
For Taylor Hall, I think realistically, if I'm the Oilers, and I don't even know if Taylor Hall's the guy I'm trading because he does seem to be the only guy who puts up points. But if I'm trading Taylor Hall, I expect a top pair defenseman and something else because that's what they need.
Yeah, they don't need any more first-round picks. Like we've seen what that's done.
They're going to get McDavid, it looks like, too. They're going to get Connor McDavid.
I saw a game the other day where Oiler fans were in the stands wearing Oiler jersey.
Yeah. Connor McDavid jersey.
With a McDavid nameplate and a paper bag over their head.
That really just sums it up, doesn't it?
How brilliant is that from a fan? And they can at least say at that point, well, I didn't throw the jersey on the ice.
That's true. They made the most of the jersey. That really sums up the Oilers because it's like, hey, look, we're in line now to get the best prospect maybe in the last 10 years and maybe one of the better ones over the last 20 years, but we also still have a paper bag over our face.
It's got to be really, really painful for Oiler fans to have to endure the last, 5 years?
I go back to Calgary again because they've lost 8 in a row, and that's fine. But they were exceeding expectations, and the attitude there is still, hey, look, we knew there was going to be growing pains. We were probably playing a little over our head early on. Now you're not sneaking up on teams because they were in first place for a little bit.
But like I said, you got a fresh face at the front office. He made some really good changes in the offseason, Hiller being one of them.
Yeah. And they just re-upped with Bob Hartley, who's the perfect coach for that group of young players.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that.
To summarize, Flames trending up, Oilers trending down. Chicago Blackhawks plus 39 on the year. They're now 1 point out of first in the entire NHL, 8-1-1 in their last 10.
They're a machine. And whenever 88 touches the puck, I don't care if he's at the other end, it's going in.
I don't know if I can. I told you this out there. I don't know if I can do another year of the Blackhawks winning the Stanley Cup, but I'm looking right now. How many teams, roughly, do you think could actually beat Chicago in a 7-game series? I think we're talking about 4 or 5 that have even the opportunity.
In the West, I think one team could probably beat them, and I think that's Anaheim.
Well, in LA, we have to give LA credit because they have done it.
Yeah, they have, but I'd put my money on Anaheim.
But, okay, so Chicago last year lost a 7-game overtime series to LA, correct? Why am I blanking on this? Did they win the Cup the year before? They did.
Yes.
Okay. Then,
and LA was in the Western Conference Final.
Yeah. The year before that, they lost 6 games to the Coyotes. The year before that, they won the Cup.
Right.
They've been eliminated twice in the last 4 years, and both times the series were barn burners.
But they look so good this year. So good.
They've looked good for 5 years.
Their thing is injuries.
Well, that's
every team's problem.
Anybody, yeah.
But when you've got a team that is that deep, losing one of them is big.
Here's the two things I would think you could get to a team like Chicago. One, middle of the season, it's December 22nd as we record this. They've been playing for 4 years where they've gone deep into the playoffs every year. Maybe they don't really get all fired up for the Wednesday night game against Columbus or whatever. But they are. They're still not losing. And then the other thing is they haven't had their number one goalie for about 3 weeks.
But you know as well as I do, and I know the THP fans know as well, I'm a youth hockey coach. The hardest part about coaching at my level anyways, and I think it translates to the higher level because, I sit in the stands and I watch drills that the NHL players run that I run with my guys. It's mind. It's mental. They all have the skill. They all can play the game. Now it's a mental thing. And the difference between a good team and a great team is the mental capability of playing that dog game on a Tuesday night against a lower-end team and just taking it to them and treating that game like I'm playing a number one team.
So who is it then? Is it Taves or is it Quenneville or is it just a mix of everything? I guess it's got to be a little bit of everything.
I think it's the leadership in the room along with the head coach. He does not like to lose.
That is very true. And I would not like to lose if he was my coach.
And so you know that he's instilling that mindset that he doesn't care, no offense, Edmonton, that if they're playing Edmonton night on a Tuesday night, that they're coming and they're treating you like you are Anaheim.
They still have a job to do. They look like a machine.
And if they walk out the front door with a 20-0 win, they're okay with that. Other people will say they're running the score. They're just saying, no, I'm playing and I'm here to win.
Best goal differential in hockey right now, which I know is a stat that you like.
I love that one.
Plus 39. Anaheim has the best record in hockey still right now, and as you just said, that could be a team that could maybe beat Chicago. We're just kind of running through the West here because it's been a little while just to catch up on anything we've missed here over the last few weeks. Martin Brodeur, what are we thinking of him at this point? He's only played 4 games as we record this, but he's got a 3.60 goals against and an .882 save percentage. If it was the first 4 games of the season 6 years ago, we wouldn't say anything.
Well, I wouldn't say anything now.
Okay.
Here's a guy that didn't get picked up 30 games into the season, and you expect him to be .925 save percentage and a 1.9 goals against. That's just not going to happen. He's in a new club. He's got to get used to the guys. There's a lot of X factors lined up that he's got to get. The only thing I don't like about it is that if he's going to play, he should be finishing his career in New Jersey.
Well, yeah, and
that just bothers me.
I
don't know why, but it just bothers me. He's done so much for the Devils organization that's where he should have finished.
Well, and if he's going to be a backup,
just
be a backup in New Jersey.
Correct.
I understood if he wanted. I know this wasn't on him.
And I'm telling you right now, if he started the season in New Jersey, those numbers would be different.
That's probably true. New Jersey's a weird team.
We'll talk about them later.
I kind of forget about them sometimes, and they're like the that middle team that you just forget about in the NHL.
Everybody
right
forgets about them.
In terms of Anaheim, we have to throw out there that Ilya Bryzgalov is back too. Since the last podcast we did, he's back playing in the NHL, which just makes me happy. Vancouver missed the playoffs last year. Got off to a really good start this year.
Well,
they won last night, but they had lost 5 straight before that. That's an interesting team to me as well.
But they're third in the Pacific,
tied with LA.
So they're fine. They're not. I think they got some key people. Again, they made changes in the offseason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they brought in Ryan Miller and Radim Vrbata, and those are 2 pretty nice additions.
Well, and you got Radim Vrbata playing with Sedin twins, and I think he's injected a little bit of life in the Twins.
And not having John Tortorella helps them too, apparently.
You and I have talked about it. John Tortorella, to me, just didn't fit the makeup of that team.
Especially the Sedins. I mean, they're not built to play that way.
And there's nothing wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, I don't have a problem with it at all. Some coaches fit, some coaches don't fit. I mean, you have to understand, and the good coaches are able to adjust to the roster.
Well, in fairness to Tortorella, he didn't really get that long to adjust. But based on what we've seen from Tortorella, I'm not so sure he would have been all that keen on adjusting.
Speaking of keen, you got guys like Michael Keane, right? He's playing in the KHL or coaching in the KHL, but he never really changed his style.
No. Okay, so before we wrap up the West here, I'll just take it right back to Edmonton. We just mentioned John Tortorella and Mike Keenan. Is that the sort of coach they need? I'm not saying necessarily one of those two, but a guy that is a disciplinarian that has been around for years and years. I don't think that there's a problem with bringing up an AHL coach, but for Edmonton, it's not working.
I think that with the Oilers, we're back to the word veteran. I think they need a veteran coach. I don't know if he has to be a harsh disciplinarian because I don't know if those young guys can take it. Because you have to be very, very careful with young guys on how hard you are, how hard you're not. Am I good cop, bad cop, the whole thing. I think a veteran coach could probably bring something to them because a veteran coach, he sits down with a couple of veteran players and say, look, this is how I want you to treat these young guys, and this is what we need to get out of them. And then, kind of get in their head that way. Get in their head through the veterans.
So you're saying just winning 20 games every year isn't going to get it done?
No.
Okay.
You're listening to The Hockey Podcast. Feel free to email comments or questions to the show at our email address, thehockeypodcast@gmail.com.
Segment 2, Doug, it is quiz time.
No.
You ready to answer some questions?
Okay.
Question number 1. If a plane leaves Toronto traveling at 573... No, we're not doing that.
Is that a European plane or a North American plane?
I'll get back to you on that. All right. Who leads the NHL in total points? Which player leads the NHL in total points? Don't look at any of the 19 laptops in front of you.
Which player total points?
Yeah, and obviously since I'm asking you in this segment, he's in the Eastern Conference. I'll give you that.
Total points.
Total points. You're overthinking
I'm not. Let me.
First name that comes to your mind.
In the East.
Well, that was your clue. I mean, I could just be lying.
Okay, I'll just Ovechkin.
Jakub Voracek. There's no way you were going to get it.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. 44 points as we record this. Leads the entire NHL. How you doing over there? You doing good?
Who?
Yeah.
Well, break down the points for me.
What, like goals and assists? Well, you'd think I just have that handy. I do. 14 goals, 30 assists, plus 15 on Philadelphia. So Claude Giroux is number 3 in the NHL in total points with 40 points.
Is he still eating sweaters?
I don't know. That's not listed here for some reason. Yet the Flyers don't win any games. They are 13, 14, and 6 on the year, which I guess is a whole different thing. I just wanted to see if you knew who led the NHL in total points.
I did not know that.
Which team, this quiz time's not over, which team
geez.
leads the NHL in total goals?
Total goals?
As a team, collectively. Again, this is probably going to change by the time people hear this, but as we record this right now.
Goals.
Total goals. You're looking at your laptop.
Yeah, I know. I don't know.
Toronto. Your Toronto Maple Leafs. 114 goals on the year. Granted, they've given up 102, but that's neither here nor there. 114 goals. So I don't know. Where do you want to start here in the East? Let's start with Toronto. You want to?
Okay, let's start there.
Because Philadelphia really hasn't done anything other than Voracek and Giroux that's noteworthy at this exact moment.
Yeah, I mean, they're sitting in the 6th wild card spot.
6th wild card spot, not the 6th spot in these. Yeah, only 2 wild cards get in.
Right, they're a solid 16 points behind Pittsburgh.
So where they belong. So what were your impressions of Toronto? Because at one point here, I don't know if this has all happened since the last podcast we did, but they were actually throwing jerseys on the ice in Toronto, which I thought was kind of stupid because the Maple Leafs haven't been. It's not like they're going through years and years of futility. I know they haven't won a cup since just before the Civil War, but in terms of actually winning hockey games.
But I would say in the last 3 years they haven't done diddly.
That's true. But there was a stretch this year where they won 10 of 12.
Correct.
And that has got them into a decent position. They've lost 3 straight as we record this. But what are your impressions as somebody that grew up in Toronto of the Maple Leafs right now?
I mean, I actually like this roster. There's a couple of players on the roster that I'm not a fan of. The problem I have with Toronto is this whole revolving door with the goaltending.
What if you had, and I'm just going to throw out a name, held on to Tuukka Rask? Would that make your life easier?
I knew I shouldn't have thrown that nugget out.
No, you shouldn't have.
But yeah, hindsight's 20/20 at this point,
That's
right?
That's true.
But when they brought in Bernier, I thought that was going to be like a changing point. I really did.
Yeah.
And I realized that Reimer had a solid season coming from the AHL and helping Toronto out prior to Bernier signing with the Leafs. But ever since, I have a fan. I'm not looking at numbers. It's just a feeling. It feels like a revolving door with these 2 goaltenders. One guy will get hot and he'll play a couple of games, and then the other guy's in. He'll get hot for a couple of games, and it's just nobody can sit in those pipes and just have a solid 4 or 5 game stretch where they're shutting it down.
You and I had this conversation off the air a couple of days ago of you can't win in football with 2 different quarterbacks. You got to just pick one and go with it.
Right.
In hockey, I do think you can have success rotating goalies, but they both have to be really good, which Reimer's goals against is over 3 this year. Even Bernier's is not nearly as good as I thought it was. He's at 2.76. But I do think some of that is the fact that they rotate. So not only do you have to have good goalies, they have to have the mindset of they can play one night, be really good, and then not play for 5 days.
But I don't know if you can have 2 starting goalies. You don't have 2 starting quarterbacks. You have a starting quarterback, and a backup quarterback.
But I think you can do it in the regular season if you have the right guys. In terms of goalies. You can't do it with a quarterback. And in the playoffs, you can't win with that. You have to have a goalie that knows he's in no matter what.
I'm not a fan of platooning in any way, shape, or form.
Fair. What about the movie Platoon?
That was a good movie. I did like that movie.
Okay. But goalie Platoon, not high on your list.
Just not high on my list. I need a guy that is just solid all the time, that you can rely on. You can ride him for a while. And then when I need to rest him, I can go to the backup goalie and say, okay, now it's your turn to hold us in a game while this guy gets rested and comes back later. Because it's usually, a 60-game to 22-game split for most teams?
I'll tell you the really good teams, we didn't talk about Nashville last segment, Pekka plays 65 games a year when he's healthy. And I know that's on the more extreme end, but Tuukka Rask, if he's healthy, is going to play 60 to 65 games as well. Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting because Toronto has gotten better, but you're right. Goaltending / defense is still.
It's like, so I got one goalie playing 41, another goalie for 41. That's 50-50. That's mediocrity at its best.
Yeah. That could be your motto for this year. Mediocrity at its best.
I would like to see something better than that.
That could also be your motto for this year. All right. Florida Panthers. That's stability and goal.
Wow.
You and I talked about. I'm all about the segues. It's a new era of segues on this show.
And I've said it over and over again on this show that you have to start with goaltending and work your way out, which is why going back to the Toronto, it bothers me. Florida, they know who their number 1 is.
Well, okay, so you and I talked about this, and I'm sure you'll drag up the preseason prediction episodes at some point if they start to go wrong. But I know that I said about Florida, I like what they're doing because they've stockpiled a few high picks, not like Edmonton, but they have them. And actually, those guys haven't even really been that good yet, but they're still young. But you've got a goalie that keeps you in every single game. So every game you're in it. And the Panthers right now are 2 points out of a playoff spot.
And they brought in, we both agreed, what we thought was the correct new coach in Gallant.
Yeah. And I guess the jury's still out on that. But so far, so good.
So far, so good. It's his first season. His team is only 2 points out of the wild card spot at this point.
And they've played less games than everybody. Florida is on their own schedule.
And they got guys like Willie Mitchell hitting people upside the head with a helmet.
There you go.
Did you see that play?
Yes.
I wonder if Letang has a headache this morning.
Probably. Yeah. So,
do you think there's a suspension for that?
There wasn't one
yet. Has it been reviewed?
They've got a long list of things they're reviewing this
I'm
week.
sorry, if player safety doesn't come under that, then the league needs to. Yeah. Oh, let's hit another player upside the head with a helmet that I just ripped off his head.
That does feel like a little headshot action. But the reason I brought up Florida is because I want to talk about the 20-round shootout that took place on December 16th, so not even a week ago.
Wow.
How was that? 20-round shootout, 18 minutes long, 40 shots, 29 saves. It was between Florida and Washington. Poor Braden Holtby, I believe, was in net for Washington. Makes, 14 saves in the shootout and loses.
That's brutal.
How wrong is that?
Just like, you play your heart out and it comes down to one goal. And the funny part about it is if you listen to the play-by-play from both teams, all the guys could talk about in the shootout was, I want to go home.
Yeah, well,
is this done yet? And then when they finally scored, it's like, yay!
The Florida
team didn't win. It's, yay, we get to go home.
The Florida call was great. The actual game-winning goal call was, I can go to sleep now.
Yeah.
So Florida's 3 of their last 5 games have gone to the shootout, and one of them was a 20-rounder. The next game they played Philadelphia, it went 6 rounds. It didn't even feel like anything.
Right.
So
it's easy.
We touched on Boston a little bit. Surprisingly average so far.
Yeah, I mean, Chara was out for a while.
That's a very good point.
I mean, I forget how long he was out, but he was out for an extended period of time.
David Krejci just came back, so that's another big piece.
That's another big piece. And, of course, after an injury, you just don't come back and all of a sudden you're automatically at the top of your game. It'll take a while to settle in and get rolling again. I think Boston's okay.
Let me toss this at you. Your Chara point's great too, because I watched his first game back, and that guy has been one of the best defensemen in the NHL for the last 10 years, and he even looked a little bit off. So you're right. You miss all that time, you look a little thrown off. I'm just going to quickly give you this. We're about 34 games into the season. Here's the playoff teams in the East right now. Okay, Montreal, Tampa, Detroit, Toronto, Pittsburgh, the Islanders, the Rangers, and Washington.
Right, and Toronto and Washington are the wild card teams.
The reason I bring that up is because Boston is currently on the outside looking in, and they're going to get in. So who's at risk here? At least one of those teams is at risk. And look, Philadelphia is not out. I mean, nobody's out of it yet in the East except Carolina.
Yeah, Carolina's out. Buffalo's out.
But Boston's going to get in.
I think Boston's going to get in. I think right now it's a toss-up between Toronto and Washington.
Is the East getting stronger?
As much as I hate to say that.
Yeah. Well, but it's true.
But it's true because I think Florida might be able to make a push, but it's not going to go long. Ottawa, I don't know what's going on there.
Well, if it helps, neither do they.
And then Philadelphia, I rode them hard last year, and they fooled me.
They start slow though every year. I wouldn't count Philadelphia out yet either, as much as I would love to count Philadelphia out.
Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, if they put a nice little winning streak together, they're only 6 points out of a wild card spot.
Yeah, numerically, really, I mean, you could make a case just looking at numbers. Buffalo isn't even out of it. We know that they aren't going to make the playoffs, but
yeah, but 9 points, that's not double digit yet, but it's still a long haul.
Well, look. Let's be clear. I'm not advocating for Buffalo to make the playoffs. I'm just saying that all those teams in front of them are still in it. But
you have to appreciate what Teddy Nolan's doing in Buffalo.
They won 10 of 13. From November 15th to December 15th, that team won 10 of 13.
He's done something. I mean, we don't watch Buffalo every day. We don't see Buffalo's practices every day. But
why not?
He's in their head. He's done something. He's flipped a switch, whatever that switch is. And, kudos to him as the head coach to find that switch because that'll go a long way. Now, if you win 10 out of 13, all of a sudden, instead of believing that you can't win, you're believing that you can win.
To put it in perspective, Carolina has 9 wins all year. Edmonton has 7. And Oof. Buffalo, who I think most people just assumed Connor McDavid was going to Buffalo.
That was all the talk at the start of the season.
And yes. Look, he still easily could. But, I mean, they won 10 to 13. If nothing else, it certainly clears up any sort of misconception that the Sabres were going to tank for McDavid, which you and I have said in the past, I don't think NHL teams do that. on purpose.
Mathematically, it doesn't pay to do that.
No, and if you do that, then the coach and everybody that was there for the tanking is all gone by the time the player comes in. And,
Absolutely.
real quickly, the New York Islanders not going away.
What a Cinderella story.
Yaroslav Halak at one point won 11 consecutive starts. That's the franchise
How big
record.
were the Letty Boychuk pickups?
Nice. You know what? As much as the Islanders have screwed up in the past, and this is another thing, I'm pretty sure I had them in the playoffs at the start of this year, to go out there and realize Boston's got a trim salary cap and Chicago does, and we're going to swoop in and take both those guys for basically nothing.
That was brilliant.
That was really brilliant for a team that hasn't had defense in a long time.
And now you got a solid number one tendy.
Yeah, Halak has I think answered some questions. John Tavares has 13 goals, which is nice. He's not even the leading goal scorer on the team, on his own team.
Right, which is weird because he always has been.
Yeah. But if I'm an Islanders fan, I'm encouraged by that.
Oh, absolutely. I coach with an Islanders fan, and he's giddy every day he comes to the rink.
I don't know if I've ever seen an Islanders fan giddy.
Oh, he's giddy.
Wow.
Trust me, he is giddy. He won't say it to his buddies on the island, but he's giddy.
Yeah. Well, they're a fun team to watch, too. I enjoy them. Kyle Oposa leading the way in points, but Brock Nelson with 14 goals leads the team.
Wow.
So, anyway, that's something to watch there, and I think we need to at least note this before we go. Hey, by the way, I didn't bring up the Penguins once.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Letang getting cracked a can.
Yeah, but you were bringing it up in a hurtful way, which is just your style. We do need to mention New York Rangers. Just this quickly, Kevin Kline. Did you see this game where he got part of his ear just basically hacked off, gets it sewed back on the bench, goes out, scores the game-winning goal, which was against the Penguins, but
again,
it was awesome.
Again, another hockey story that no other team, that no other sport can match.
You don't think that would happen in soccer?
Wouldn't have. Soccer, the only place where I might see it happen is in football.
Yeah, that's true.
But that was old school football. Football players today, no way.
Really? See, I think football players are borderline insane as well, but that play was just so hockey. He had
his ear stitched back on, and he finished the game.
On the bench, he had it stitched back on. And he didn't just finish the game, he scored the game-winning goal.
Like, if you go back in the NFL 25 years ago, you'll get the stories of a guy breaking a finger and finishing the game, or a guy having
Ronnie Lott, is missing part of his finger
and finishing the game. How many times have you heard that since?
Not as much.
Not. Because the NFL is making their game soft, and hence the players are becoming soft.
You just call NFL players soft? All right. This is direct all emails to Doug Cannon at
It wasn't a slam. I think that the whole game as a whole,
it's a different game. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of NFL fans that absolutely agree with you.
And I don't understand when you have a game that is designed for one person to hit another person, you're trying to lessen that.
Well, you can't touch the quarterbacks, which is an issue if you're a defensive player. We probably get a lot of defensive NFL players that would wholeheartedly agree with you as well.
But the thing I love about our game is the fact that the guys will always try to finish the game.
It's not even like something you think about. Like I wasn't there with Kevin Kline, obviously, but I guarantee he was like, yeah, just stitch it on. We've still got 18 minutes left in this game.
Right.
Like, it's not even like a second thought, like, well, should I play without my entire ear?
Van Gogh would have been very proud of him.
Wow, a Van Gogh joke. Timely.
You're tuned into the Hockey Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Hockey Podcast for even more hockey news. #do it.
Final segment, Doug.
Oh, no.
News and notes. And I dare say this might be the best news and notes ever.
Okay.
Not to set the bar too high.
It's my favorite segment. You know that.
That has been well established 53 times now. Let's start with the World Juniors. We got a lot to get to in this segment. Some of the biggest stories are actually in this segment.
Okay, let's go.
World Juniors, I'm not going to go through all the teams or the schedule or whatever. I will tell you this. It starts December 26th. So hopefully you're hearing this before then. But if not, whatever. Still listen. It's great.
What do you mean we're not going through the teams?
Well, we can, but I'm not going through every roster.
Well, no. But there's only 10 teams.
Make your pick right now. I assume you're going to take Germany to win the whole thing. No? Okay.
Well, I mean, did Canada and the U.S. kind of get an easy draw? Or am I seeing this wrong?
Well, they're in the same group. That's kind of strange. But
they're in Group A, along with Finland, Slovakia, and Germany. Oy vey.
Finland just
Stop.
won.
Just stop.
Finland's good. Don't make me defend Finland. Don't make my voice go this high to defend Finland. Finland's good.
Better than Canada?
That's such a Canadian thing to say.
Okay,
If you're not better than Canada.
I'll rephrase it. Better than USA?
Well, obviously, I'm talking about the U.S., no. But, no, Finland is absolutely dangerous. Finland just won this thing. Anyway, let me get into
Group
this.
B.
Group B is Russia,
Sweden, Czechs, Switzerland, Denmark.
We should have timed it out so we both said the names exactly together like a high school play.
Okay, so who's coming out of Group B?
Well, my initial reaction would
the
be
gold
Russia
medal
and
game.
Sweden.
Gold medal game. Pick one.
I always want to pick Russia, and they always disappoint. I'll go Sweden. I'm not picking against Sweden anymore. How's that?
Oh, you're not picking against Sweden anymore. Okay, I agree. Group A.
Bold. Why don't you make the first pick here?
Canada.
Well, then I'm just going to pick the U.S.
Okay.
I'm so glad we did predictions for the World Juniors because that wasn't what I wanted to do
Such
at
good
all.
hockey, though. Come on.
I feel like it's going to be better than ever this year, and here's why. Ready?
Yep.
First of all, the games are played at a decent time because they're in Toronto and Montreal. So if you live in North America...
Well, that's why right there is Toronto, Montreal.
Oh, boy. This is Canadian pride just exuding from that side of the table. When's the last time Canada won the World? It's been 5 years? 5-ish?
Continue.
5+. Anyway, I'm looking at Canada's roster, and it's insane. It's I know that what does Canada call their program? Like the Commitment to Excellence program, or Hockey Excellence, or Hockey Amazingness, or We Win All the Time.
It's a mindset.
Either way, here's some of these names: Max Domi, Anthony Duclair, who's already playing for the Rangers, Curtis Lazar, who's already playing for Ottawa.
Connor McDavid.
I was going to save him I was going to build up to Connor McDavid, but yes, Connor McDavid, Nick Ritchie, Sam Reinhart, who was just a top 3 pick or whatever in the NHL, Zachary Fucali, who's supposed to be a very good goalie, which has kind of been your guy's weakness in years past, has been goaltending. Darnell Nurse.
Very strong defenseman.
It's a very absolutely loaded team, but the storyline here is certainly Connor McDavid for Canada against Jack Eichel for the U.S.
Correct.
So,
and that's going to be the Group A final. It's going to be.
They play on New Year's Eve. So Canada-U.S. right there, you're going to be able to see McDavid versus Eichel. But the reason I bring this up...
I don't know if the wife's going to be very happy spending New Year's Eve watching a junior hockey club.
Who? So
what are we doing for New Year's Eve, honey? I'm watching a hockey game.
Well, first of all, she should know that by now. Even if it wasn't U.S.-Canada, you'd be like, I'm watching a replay of the 2007 London Knights game. Eichel versus McDavid is great for so many reasons, but specifically this one. They don't ever play against each other.
Right.
So you've got Eichel playing for Boston University. You've got Connor McDavid playing for Erie in, was it the CHL? OHL. Erie's in the OHL. Okay. Sorry, I'm not Canadian. I know where Boston University is. But we get to see those two play against each other on at least December 31st.
That's Erie.
That's, wow. I could tell by the look on your face you were going to say something. So my question to you, Doug.
Uh-oh.
Something that you thought was funny. Is it possible for Jack Eichel to pass Connor McDavid in terms of being the number 1 overall pick in this upcoming draft?
Absolutely.
You think it is?
I think it is.
What does he have to do? Does he have to win World Junior Gold and he has to be like the tournament MVP?
He just needs to be himself.
Oh, that was nice. There's a number 1 pick
within
within
all
all
of
of us.
I think the two of them are equally talented. I think Connor McDavid gets so much attention just because he's young.
Well, so is Eichel. But you're saying McDavid we've been hearing about since he
was 15.
Even younger,
He
I
played
feel like.
juniors when he was 15.
I'm looking forward to that game. I'm looking forward to watching Connor McDavid. I really am. I mean, personally, I'm looking forward to seeing Max Domi because of
Our connection
where we
with the
are.
Coyotes, yes.
And also, just he's a fun player to watch if somehow you haven't seen him play yet. So he's going to be fun for Team Canada. But I haven't seen nearly enough of Jack Eichel for Team USA, so that's going to be something too. And then there's the rumors that I think have been pretty effectively squashed. I don't even know if you heard these, that Eichel was going to leave Boston University and play for St. John of the QMJHL after this. It doesn't sound like he came right out and flat out said that's not going to happen, so I'm going to take him at his word. But I loved how the reporting was, well, pretty strong sources are saying he's going to switch over to junior after this tournament so that he can try and move up to number 1 because he'll at least be playing in junior, maybe face Connor McDavid in the Memorial Cup.
What year is he at Boston?
Oh, I believe he's only
junior.
No. I thought he was only a. Well, now you've put me on the spot. I'm gonna have to find this. But either way,
you can ask me questions, but I can't ask you.
Yeah, that's
questions.
how the show works.
Oh, okay.
I didn't. No, he's not a junior. Either way, he's coming out at the end of this year. So if he wants to be the number 1 pick in the draft, does he?
Is
have
that
to?
really a priority, though? I mean, think about it. If you go number 2,
well, maybe it isn't. But I'm saying I don't think there's any way for him to pass Connor McDavid without head-to-head success against Connor McDavid.
See, if that rumor's true, I have a problem with it because you've made a commitment to Boston U.
I knew you would. That's why I brought this up.
So you have to honor that commitment. That's just how I think, and that's the way it should be, and you go from there.
It wouldn't.
I just lost my voice for a second.
Well, I just thought you were getting emotional. It wouldn't be the first time. He's a freshman, by the way, so I was right. Don't ever question my knowledge of Boston University hockey.
What's their mascot?
The Terriers.
Okay.
He wouldn't be the first player to do that, but it doesn't sound like he's going to. But it was an interesting story that developed last week because there was some logic behind it, I guess.
I think the number 1-2 race is so hyperbolic right now within the media that they're looking for new, fresh angles.
That's probably 100% true. But I don't know if I'm the team with the number 1 pick. I don't know that I can pass on McDavid after this. After just for as much as we've heard about him and for as good as he looks, if you pass on him and take somebody else, whether it's Eichel or somebody else, and then he goes on to do what everybody's been saying he's going to do for the last 3 or 4 years, how do you keep your job at that point?
Roll the dice, baby.
Fair enough.
Roll the dice.
So anyway, that's the main storyline to be watching. I'm going to throw out this too. Austin Matthews is supposed to be the number 1 pick next year from Scottsdale, Arizona. He's there with Team USA as well.
Very talented hockey player.
Absolutely.
Very talented.
All right, Doug, I know you want to talk about NHL, Road to the Winter Classic.
I'm disappointed.
Wow. What a downer. Okay. Explain.
Now, listen. Prior seasons, it's all you and I can talk about. It's HBO's 24/7. It's all my boys can talk about is that they just want to sit down and watch that series at this time of year.
It's a good break. If you've been playing hockey, take a little break from playing hockey to watch some hockey and then go play hockey.
And the boys like it because of every other fan and non-hockey fan because it takes you behind the scenes. You get to see the guys with their wives, their families, their moms, their dads. You get to see the ups and downs.
The ugly sweater every year at the holiday party.
The holiday party. You get to see how guys battle through injuries. You get to see the fact that these guys aren't pampered, that some of the coaches hold them accountable and they have to be accountable for their actions on and off the ice. And it's refreshing and it's a treat. My problem this year is I have to watch it online.
Yeah, which I find both disappointing and also hilarious because I can watch it on TV. But I hear where you're coming from.
Well, the difference there is that you have a local cable outlet. I have a satellite provider, and my satellite provider hasn't done a deal with the company that the NHL has hired to present this production.
So I dare say that next year you will probably be able to watch it on TV. But this year, you're right. You're stuck watching it on your laptop or your computer or whatever. You hook your laptop and your TV. But regardless, I hear what you're saying. And I will say this. I won't say I'm disappointed in it, but I do notice a change. I'm still excited to watch it. I believe there's 6 episodes this year.
Okay. I'm gonna even pile on some more.
Oh, I'm not even done. Okay, go ahead. You pile on, and then I'll pull us back out.
The NHL, I pay a lot of money for the center ice package.
True.
I pay
well worth it.
I pay within my provider. I pay for an extra tier of sports.
Okay.
So that I get the NHL network. Why isn't this being presented on the NHL network?
Those are behind-the-scenes questions I don't have the answer to.
Well, I don't have the answers, but I mean, it's just like, to me, it'd be a no-brainer. Like, if I don't have a deal in place with HBO this year, fine, I understand that. Contracts have to be negotiated, and you just have to be patient until the higher-ups at the league can solve it. I'm okay with that. But you have your own network. You have the NHL network. This is kind of an NHL presentation with the company that they've hired to produce it. Why not air it on the NHL network?
Well, here's my 2 questions for you. because all I can really do is answer your question with a question.
Okay.
Are you disappointed because you're comparing it to 24/7? Like if this just came on, let's say there had never been 24/7 and this show came out, would you still be disappointed?
Yeah, I have issues with the production value.
Oh, wow.
I think the production value is down. But
down from 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do an A/B comparison. I just think the production's not as good as what HBO provided. Don't know why.
Okay. Well, HBO, let's be fair, is like award-winning though.
Yes. So I'm not going to do that. My whole thing is access. The whole thing about doing this, the road to the Winter Classic, was that it led up to this beautiful outdoor game that we all loved and embraced the first time they did it. Last year, I thought they overdid it. They watered the product, in my opinion. Now, the following year, I don't have access to it. This is just such a beautiful way to present our sport in front of casual fans that normally wouldn't tune into it. It doesn't seem to be the spectacle that it was before.
Yeah, okay, so I'll build off that. This is the only, and I don't even have a complaint. I mean, I'm going to watch every episode at least twice.
So am I.
Yeah, well, no, I know, I understand that. But I would say, and I don't know how to quantify this, but I feel like when it was on HBO, like I have HBO and I have it literally for Hard Knocks and 24/7. That's why I have HBO. When it was on
Don't forget Game of Thrones.
I've never seen an episode.
Okay.
I know you have. When it was on HBO, I felt like everybody was watching this. And so I do feel like it was access not just for hockey fans, but for everybody.
Right.
So your NBA fan is out there watching it and being like, hey, this is interesting. Whether I actually have spent enough time watching hockey or not, I'm meeting all these players and I now know their storylines, which I always think is the biggest thing the NHL could do. And I've said this on this podcast before too. If they want to add more fans, and they don't need them, but if they want to add more fans, get NFL and Major League Baseball fans to know some of the stories behind these players. That's what I felt like was happening before this so far, and it's only been one episode. I feel like appeals specifically to NHL fans, which is fine for me because I'm an NHL fan.
Correct.
But I don't know that it's going to bring new people in.
And the reason that is because only the NHL fan is going to go hunt it down.
That's what I'm saying. That's absolutely true. The quality, I don't think, is much different.
My son watched it. He enjoyed it. He's not complaining. But he's of a new generation that is okay watching something on their smartphone.
Yeah.
I like it on my big screen TV.
You do. That's very true.
But, and I also brought up the NHL Network, but you also have this beautiful contract with NBC Sports Network.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened? Is the NHL Revealed coming back?
This seemed very similar to NHL Revealed, the way it was done to me, which, again, I'm fine with. And it's not just a hockey thing. If the NFL was trying to add in new fans, but it was only available on the NFL Network, how many new fans are going to find it?
Right.
So, I don't know. I liked episode 1. There is 6, because they're going to take us through the San Jose-LA game as well. So, it's enjoyable. I would be fine. I feel like I've seen a lot of Chicago Blackhawks.
But the thing I like about it, though, in the past, is that I would have non-hockey fans talk to me about it because they watched it.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not gonna get that this year because it's in a place where only hockey fans will hunt it down and watch it.
And I always like it when non-hockey fans watch something like that and they're like, hey, you were right. Hockey is pretty amazing.
It's an amazing game.
And I demand an apology publicly from them.
So I guess as hockey fans, we're just going to have to be patient and trust that the higher-ups at the league have a macro plan that's going to reward us.
Macro plan. Oh, that's a big economic word. All right, so we've got 2 topics left we have to hit on.
Okay.
Do you want topic A or topic B?
B.
All right, B. James Neal, the first NHL player to be fined $2,000 for diving. Your thoughts on this? Publicly shamed, too. It's not the $2,000 fine. You have been publicly shamed because we all know you were diving. And we all know you were diving twice because the first time's just a warning.
I don't know the reasoning because I haven't read the reasoning behind the fine.
Okay.
But if Willie Mitchell doesn't get a fine or suspension for what he did,
okay,
then a $2,000 fine for diving is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, okay, but it's 2 different things.
No.
But specifically, we haven't seen anybody ever get fined for diving. We've seen players get fined and suspended for trying to injure people.
Okay, what is the reasoning behind the fine?
Well,
why would you fine somebody for diving? He already got 2 minutes, yes?
My perception, not always, my perception is that...
Did he get a penalty?
And
the fine?
On this particular play, I believe he did get a penalty. But in general, you don't have to get a penalty. They like get together and vote on this, and then they warn players. And there's been 22 other players warned, so we're going to see more of these. It's to prevent the guys from diving and trying to take penalties and slowing down the game. We saw this in the playoffs a couple years ago, and I think everybody agreed that it was getting out of control. It was egregious. There, take that. The top of your macro word.
It's egregious.
Yeah.
Well, there is a system. Doesn't it, after the third time the coach gets fined?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at the flow chart right here.
Yeah.
This is really why I'm so excited about this. Two more,
and then his coach gets fined.
Then Peter Laviolette has to explain why.
$4,000, right?
Then James Neal will owe $4,000, and Laviolette will owe $2,000. And then
then it keeps going up.
Yeah, that's going to be a great press conference. The first time the coach has to pay $2,000 because his player keeps diving.
I would have to. I didn't see the play, so I would have to just reserve my comments. But boy, if it was egregious, man, it had to be really, really flagrant. Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm not saying that particular dive was egregious. I'm just saying a couple years ago we were getting to the point where it wasn't. I don't want to trash other sports, but it wasn't soccer where guys were just going down. But we were heading towards that path. It felt like in the playoffs.
You really felt that?
Yeah.
I
didn't like the trend, and I wasn't the only one. We heard coaches say this too. Of we got to get this out of the game before it even becomes an issue. We got to get it out of the game. All right, final topic. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Mumps.
Bum, 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 bum.
No, I wasn't making a sound. I was saying the word.
It's a childhood viral disease.
Thanks, Dr. Cannon.
That has inflected the NHL. So the two teams, Minnesota, Pittsburgh.
But it started in St. Louis, apparently.
Okay.
And then Anaheim was...
Yeah, Anaheim got hit.
Yeah.
I know of a couple other teams, but nothing was reported, so I'll keep my mouth shut. Weird.
It hit Derek Brassard, I believe, with the Rangers.
Yes.
It's odd that it's... I don't know if there's much to talk about here, but it's just
weird.
Odd.
Because I went to the CDC website, and typically mumps, either one year there's a ton of cases, and the following year there's nothing. So, for example, in 2010, there's over 2,600 cases of mumps in the U.S.
Okay.
The year before that, there was only 229.
Yeah, we've already had at least 16 in the NHL. Just in the NHL, that's a very small population, or percentage of the population.
Right. So you got, 700 and some odd players?
Yeah.
And 17 of them came down with mumps.
It's been a strange story. It's been a strange year so far.
Well, it's also one of those things that since the vaccine was invented in 1967, the cases of mumps have kind of been controlled, and you just don't hear of many flare-ups because it's always it's a few hundred here, a few hundred there, and every once in a while there's more. And then all of a sudden this year we're hearing a ton about it because it's afflicting the sport that we follow.
When it's hitting big-name players too.
Yeah. Sidney Crosby.
Fairly big name in the NHL.
Yeah.
Corey Perry as well. So
right.
It's been an odd year. Fortunately, everybody's coming right back and playing and being effective so far. So there you go. That's it for episode 53. Join us next time as we come out of the NHL trade freeze and look ahead to the second half of the season.
We will also find time to reflect on the World Juniors and see how the battle between Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel turned out. And we'll also see if the KHL is still around.
Wow, all that and quite possibly more. Thanks for listening to the Hockey Podcast.